Welcome to Upfront on the Voice of America. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Now, for over 30 years, Uganda has been under the leadership of one president. Mr. Yoweri Museveni took over power in early 1986 after leading a 5-year military struggle against what he termed as bad leadership in his country. In the early years of his administration, President Museveni was praised by mostly Western governments and international institutions for being one among a new breed of African leaders. That list also included leaders like the late Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, the current president of Eritrea, Isaias Afwerki, among others. Now, the term new breed of African leaders or African rulers was kind of a buzzword or an axiom used to describe African leaders at the time who had come to power and were governing based on liberal democratic values and principles like respect for human rights, free speech, and others. President Museveni, currently in his 5th term in office, held his first elections in 1996. That's a decade later after he took power. He won those elections with an overwhelming majority. He has since won successive elections. The last one was in 2016, an election that the opposition claimed that was rigged by the ruling NRM party. As Museveni started his 5th term in office, many in the opposition were resigned to the idea that under the current circumstances, Museveni could not be beaten at the ballot. They were resigned to the fact that any kind of political change in Uganda would be but a function of time. The 1995 Ugandan constitution put an age limit on presidential candidates, and given that Museveni would be around 75 years old in the next elections slated for 2021, he would be automatically disqualified. However, that changed last year when the ruling NRM party pushed through Parliament a bill to amend that constitutional provision and lift the age limit. This change would make President Museveni eligible to run for his 6th term in office. He'll be 80 years old at the end of that term, a stark contrast to the majority of the country, where half of the population are under the age of 25. The fight to prevent that passage of the amendment was chaotic and messy, as images of fighting in Uganda's parliament went viral, making evening news on major networks. And one of the members of parliament who led the fight against this age limit amendment was a young legislator named Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine. Kyagulanyi spent most of his musical career as a social and political critic, commanding a huge following around the country, mainly among the youth. In an interview we had with him recently before his arrest, Bobi Wine casts his current fight as a generational struggle for change in Uganda.
Well, the dictators we have today were once freedom fighters, or at least that is what they showed the world. And indeed, all their words when they were our age, and their gospel was a freedom gospel. Unfortunately, like they always say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So along the way, they got drunk on power. So in my opinion, I believe that as we fight for our freedom, it should not be a personal fight. Nobody should personalize this liberation. It should not be a liberation of somebody like it was in the 7 days. So it should be a liberation of all the people. And if we own our liberation as a country, more particularly as a generation, then no single individual will come out to claim that liberation and get that sense of entitlement. Oh, I brought this peace. Oh, I did this, so you owe me. You know, and that alone will help us to create stronger institutions, not stronger individuals. That way, we would be immunizing the country of any future dictatorships.
The Uganda government recently imposed a tax on social media, and many Ugandans opposed it, saying that the tax was an attempt to curtail free speech. Kyagulanyi was one of the leaders of that protest, taking to the streets of Kampala, calling for the government to scrap the tax. Uganda's government responded by sending police to the streets to arrest him and others. It was during that arrest that he made one of the most profound statements of his young political career.
Fighting with you, officer. We are fighting for you. We are fighting for your mother. We are fighting. This is a simple demonstration. This is our freedom. We want freedom. We want freedom. My brother, I am not fighting you. I am fighting for you.
The role of an artist, in my opinion, is to reflect what happens in society. You know, apart from using our art to enrich ourselves and entertain people, we are supposed to educate them as well. We are supposed to speak for them, because in many cases, our art reflects what happens in the society in an artistic way, in a dramatic, poetic, comic, or musical manner. And especially in such times, our art is supposed to reflect the plight of the people, the thousands, hundreds of thousands, in fact millions of people that listen to us and follow us. You know, many times they feel their voices are being reflected in our voices. And unfortunately, many times, their oppression is also emphasized by our voices. Particularly in Uganda, artists need to realize that what they do is not just for them and their families. It is for God and their country. That is our national motto. It was an artist that painted the Uganda flag. It was an artist that came up with the idea of coat of arms for our nation. And indeed, it was an artist, a musician, that composed the national anthem. So it is the art that has been holding the moral fabric of our nation. And it must be art to continue this.
Operation is worse than apartheid. The gun is the master, the citizens red. The all of Africa's bleeding. What is the purpose of the Constitution? Are you finished? What is the purpose of the Constitution when I better disrespect the Constitution? It's my freedom of expression.
A few weeks later, he was arrested after speaking at a campaign rally in a fiercely contested by-election in Arua, which is a town in northern Uganda. His driver was shot dead. Bobi Wine tweeted that it was an attempt to assassinate him. He is currently still in prison, being held incommunicado. His family says that he was tortured and is in critical condition. His arrest and torture led to street protests in towns around the country, including the capital, Kampala. People demanding for his release. But Ugandan police beat and detained protesters, including journalists. But whichever way this episode in Uganda's political history ends, it is clear that by trying to silence him, the Ugandan government has only made Bobi Wine's voice louder. For Voice of America, I'm Jackson Vunganyi. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to leave your comment below because your voice matters. Let us know what you think about this particular topic and many of the other topics we've covered right here on Upfront. Remember to hit that subscribe button, share with your friends, and we'll see you right here on Upfront next time. Peace out.
Zagadat.